have several videos out on different Fair Isle tutorials where I show different Fair Isle techniques, but never before have I put together a video with all of my favorite Fair Isle techniques in one short video that hopefully will make it easy reference for you. So in this video, I'm going to show you the different things I use every time I knit Fair Isle, and goodness knows I knit a lot of Fair Isle because hat knitting, especially Fair Isle hats, is my new favorite hobby. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, this little baby hat is my Learn to Knit Fair Isle pattern, and I'll give you a link to this pattern right here. And information about the yarn that I'm using is in the video description field below, and on my website if you click the little I again right here. So I'm working from a chart, and I want to show you a few different things. The first one is probably only useful for people who hold the working yarn in their right hand, but it's how I hold the yarn when I'm working Fair Isle. And I have two strands here. I take my first and middle finger and put it between the two strands like this. And I'm able to throw one or the other as needed. So you see I can throw a white stitch like this, like a normal flick, or I can throw a yellow stitch from the back like this. Whoops. And in this case, I have the white yarn here on my index finger and the yellow yarn on my middle finger, because you always want to keep the one color dominant over the other, and I always make sure that the lighter color is the dominant color and the darker color is the less dominant. It's just so the lighter color doesn't get lost in the sea of dark color. But even if the yarn, let me go ahead and knit one stitch here. So I have my yarn coming out a different way. I always want the white yarn on my index finger, so if the white yarn is the first stitch, I'll come from back to front, and there I have my yarn on my fingers like this. Okay, I'm not working this pattern anymore, if you haven't noticed. So something that's really important when you're working Fair Isle is keeping the floats loose on the back of the work. Because when you're carrying one, like I used white here and then didn't use it for this stitch. And so there's a float on the back of the work where the white stitch is unused. And sometimes those floats can get pretty long. But you want to make sure to keep those loose, because if they're tight, they'll bunch up the front of the work and your Fair Isle work won't lie flat. So we're always making sure the floats are loose. And the way that I do that is I stretch the stitches out on the right needle. So here I have this yellow yarn. I'm ready to work a yellow stitch. I stretch those stitches out to give the yellow yarn a bit further to travel so that the float is nice and loose on the back of the work. You can see that's not bunching anything. It's nice. Oops, it's up here. It's nice and loose. So I can go ahead and show you that again. I'm going to work a few white stitches. And then when I go to change color, I stretch the stitches on the right needle, work the other color, and then keep going. Nice loose floats. Now something else that I do, I think this is probably the last thing, is something I've been doing and pretty excited about since I released a video on weaving in ends, and then I released a video on securing floats in Fair Isle this way. So I have demonstrated this technique already, but not quite this way. When I have a Fair Isle pattern that has long sections of one color, I actually don't like working Fair Isle that have long sections of one color. I like it when it's broken up and I don't have super long floats that require catching on the back of the work. You don't ever really want to work, what I say, like more than 5 stitches without somehow securing the unworked yarn on the back of the work. Let me say that again. You don't ever want to work more than, say, 5 stitches in one color without securing the unused color on the back of the work. So the patterns that are my favorite, and believe me, I'm kind of an expert at Fair Isle hats by now because I knit them all the time. My favorite patterns are like 2 stitches in one color, 1 stitch, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, you know, nothing more than 5, because I don't enjoy securing the yarn. But this is kind of a fun way to do it. And to do this, I hold the yarn in both hands. And I don't do this for every round. I only do it for the rounds where I have to secure long floats. So, and all the continental knitters make fun of me for holding my fingers so far from the needle, but you have to just bear with me. This is how I do it. I'm going to knit a few stitches and then I'm ready to secure the float. And in this case, the white stitch is the float. So I put my needle in, I pull that yarn forward, wrap the needle, pull it back, and pull that stitch through. And when I knit the next stitch, that white yarn is secured on the back of the work. It's not just a long float hanging there waiting for it to get caught on something. So I'll show you that again. And again, I'm not following the Fair Isle pattern anymore. I'm just knitting whatever color I feel like it. I put my needle in, I pull the yarn that I'm securing forward, wrap the needle, pull it back, pull that stitch through, and when I knit the next stitch, that white yarn is secured on the back of the work. Of course, while I'm doing that, and like I said, I don't always knit with one color in each hand, but it is pretty handy. And while I'm doing that, I'm also making sure that I'm keeping the stitches pretty separated on the right needle to keep my floats loose. Whew, I just gave up all my secrets. Anyway, those are my favorite Fair Isle techniques. I hope it helps. Good luck.